Today, all eyes are on the Constitutional Court, which is set to hear the crucial application on the secret ballot in Parliament in the vote of no confidence against President Jacob Zuma. Opposition parties have joined hands with Save SA to organize another anti-Zuma opposition march to coincide with the secret ballot hearing. The UDM has brought the case after several failed attempts by opposition parties to have Zuma ousted. Let's take a look at some of the arguments for and against this bid. Now, the UDM says the Constitution does not explicitly say that there should be a secret ballot for a vote of no confidence, but it does not preclude it. The arguments against says the Constitution is silent on a secret ballot for the vote of no confidence. The UDM argues that the secret ballot allows people to vote according to their conscience without fear of reprisal. Now, the Speaker and President Zuma's counters that the secret ballot would advantage the self-serving interests of the minority parties at the expense of the ruling party elected due to its performance during an election. The UDM's argument is that a secret ballot does not guarantee that a motion of no confidence will be successful. The counter to that is that a secret ballot for a vote of no confidence makes a mockery of our democracy. It undermines the will of the electorate and therefore would be unconstitutional. Now, the UDM's argument is that the Constitution insists that MPs are constitutionally act according to the Constitution and according to their oath of office. The counter there is that MPs are elected by proportional representation and not directly, and therefore they are constrained by their party's mandate. The UDM's argument is that MPs must participate freely in the debate and decision-making without any fear of reprisal. The counter is that MPs are bound by the party constitution to toe the line decided by the caucus. And lastly, MPs must participate freely in the debate and decision-making without fear of reprisal. And also the last counter there is that MPs are bound by the party constitution to toe the lines decided by the caucus.
When you ask me a question whether how many times should we allow the vote of no confidence, look, it's like asking me how many times should we allow Boswell, like suckers. As long as the African National Congress remains a majority in Parliament, we shouldn't be worried about how many times. In Parliament, we have we sent one of the advanced detachment of the ANC, the most tried and tested leaders. We call them members of Parliament. We have no reason, not an inch, to doubt that their conscience will only be the African National Congress.
The secret ballot in Parliament. Fortunately, I'm a member of Parliament. And I can tell you that there was the ANC caucus in Parliament. We're not in film-making here. People, when they are defeated in the discussions, they go and hold up own press conferences to sound as if they're important. That issue was discussed robustly at the caucus. And comrades ultimately agreed that we are going to vote according to the party, the ANC. So those who have just made statements were saying they are ill-disciplined. And we call upon the leadership of the ANC to call them to order.
Opposition parties say that a secret ballot will provide a safe space for all MPs to be guided by their conscience and not by dictates of political bosses. But the law experts say this is yet another encroachment in legislative arena.
Could be theoretically possible to tell the Speaker, have a secret ballot. And she can say, or the Speaker can say, yes or no. And the question is whether the Speaker is bound by such an instruction. I'm very doubtful whether the Speaker can be bound by a court order. The simple reason, because that will destroy the principle, the basic principle of a constitutional democracy, and that is the separation of powers.
There is also something that is important that the court will have to address, the issue of separation of powers. The courts would guard their space, that nobody should move into that space. And Parliament would also guard its space in the same way that the executive. And those are the pillars of a democracy. So if the court then begins to dictate on how the parliament must exercise its business. That will be seen as judicial overreach. So we should not pretend that we are not far from what some of us call not only judicial activism, but also judicial tyranny. So the executive and the legislature must guard against this judicial overreach.